I love it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Learned that from my director friend. Thank you, Justine, for that little gift. All righty. Okay. I'm in the oasis of your home today.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me here. This is a really special moment for me. Very special.
Me as well. This is like a little surreal, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought we would start off first with just a little backstory, not too long, of how we know each other, how we came to be in each other's lives, and who you are.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just kind of go very quickly. This is probably the most I'm going to be like really talking most of this day, but I remember being postpartum, just had a baby, deep in the throes of postpartum depression, but didn't know it. And shout out to the girls at NAPS, our friends at NAPS. They had an amazing session, and one of my fellow mom friends that I met through the NAPS community was like, hey, this amazing woman, Dr. Sarah Harmon, is coming to speak tonight.
Dr.
Sarah Harmon is coming tonight to speak, and you have to come. And I'm like, you know, when you're a new mom, you've got a new baby, you're like, no, there's no time for anything.
Yeah.
And she convinced me, and I came. And then after you spoke, I can't remember what the topic was. Do you remember?
I think it was mindful parenting. I remember that was in person when NAPS was doing in person. Yes. That's right.
Pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And I remember being in there. It was so, I don't know why I have a memory of the one dad.
Yes, the one dad.
The one dad who was in there.
There's always a token dad.
There's a token dad, and he was in there super cute, taking notes. And at the end of the session, I was compelled. I was like, I need to go talk to her and see if she's accepting patients, because she's amazing. And then you were my provider. You were my therapist for a few years. Yeah. And then I moved to Maine.
Yep.
And then had to lose you as a therapist, which was a very difficult time. But you hooked me up with an amazing new therapist, which was amazing. And we've just been connected ever since with what your work has been. Supporting moms.
Oh, my gosh, it has been a road.
Right?
That was a long time ago.
That was a really long, I don't even remember I was such a different person then.
Yeah.
It feels like.
And it's interesting, right? Like, we're such different people, and then yet we still bring that part of ourselves. Like, I remember your personality so well, and that's still very present. Like, you have that, as people know who know you or have even like just come across you, there's like a massive contagion around your positivity and just your like vibrance, you know. And it's so evident, like, even when you were in the throes of postpartum, I was like, this woman is like, she's special, you know, like she's unique. So, you know, that has not faded.
Thank you, Sarah. Oh my gosh, that's like super touching.
Very, very truthful.
Thank you. And so how are we at this point today? I mean, there's so many different avenues by which we could dive into today, but specifically, we've been trying to talk for a long time about what could be something we could have a conversation about together. As I've just started building this new brand, Rebranding Motherhood, you've been building a space to support moms for a long time with the School of Mom, which is now expanded. And we wanted to come and talk to the world, moms, people, post Mother's Day, around the other side of relationships that women have around the world with their mothers that people don't talk about.
I think what's so remarkable is that, you know, when I started my private practice, you were one of those clients that joined who really connected to my story, or I connected with your story in my story. And as a therapist, it's an interesting place to be, because we know that your journey is your journey. However, you know, it's hard not to relate to it, because that, what we'll dive into a little more deeply, that, you know, just intensity and sadness and resentment and anger and frustration around your relationship with your mom was one that I couldn't turn off, you know, in sessions. And I realized around that time, or I'd been realizing how many women were in a similar situation as you were, as I was, on various levels, but they really did connect to our heartbreak, essentially, and our anger. And so that was a really amazing position for me to be in, because I really felt, you know, as therapists, we really work to connect with our clients, even though we might not relate to their story. And the women that came into my practice, and I'm still working with some of them in a clinical sense. Now I work with many of them in the School of Mom, so I'm very connected to these women. we have a unspoken connection that I think moms have that in general, but then moms who have the type of relationship or lack of relationship that you and I have with our moms, we have a very unique, invisible bond.
Yes. It's like we're kindred spirits from the jump.
Yes.
Totally.
And, I feel like only someone that's in those shoes can truly relate. And so as a therapist, I felt very lucky to serve you, to support you, and to support these other women who were in the trenches of that navigating, the navigating, and still happening for so many of us. It's always happening on some level. It's been a real gift. And of course, when we help others heal, we still heal ourselves.
Yep.
So it's really a gift that gives back.
I love that. So just to rewind it back for people who don't know my story all the way and are just meeting you and don't know your story, just to take a step back, I have an estranged relationship with my mother. It's like the first time I've said that out loud like that. And
Nice
it was,
job.
thank you, thank you. And it was a challenge to make it to that point with my mother. And it had been a really long road of just struggling, disappointment, disconnection. And it really became true when I was on this healing journey for my own self, to really get to know myself and heal and be the kind of mom I wanted to be, that I learned how much trauma and pain I was still carrying from that relationship. And at the time, actively, because she was still in my life, she was still kind of creating toxicity that was now spreading to my children and my broader family. And it was a really big challenge. And I remember I was working with you when I hit the crucible of the breakdown between my relationship with my mother. And I just remember you saying at one point, like, Christina, there's like other options that you can make. You were like telling me these things, and I was like, what do you mean? I thought I just had to suck it up, trudge through the gunk and the mud of this really broken, dysfunctional, unhealthy relationship, and that was really like my only choice, and I was just gonna have to like survive and like try to remain numb through this like headspace that I was living in. And then you really opened me up to just understanding some of these really basic fundamentals of mindfulness, boundaries, and advocating for myself and what I really needed. And I think that's when it became clear that, oh, this might be the next space I need to enter into, because this relationship is so unhealthy. I can't heal and become the healthy person I want to with this weight really just bringing me back. And so that was kind of how I got to this point. And then you created this beautiful program called Untethered. And so I would love for you to just kind of share, like, if you don't mind, like your journey and your story with your mother. We were just talking inside with Sarah's husband. Very lovely man, Seth. I really enjoyed him. He made me chuckle a lot. And
he's going to be so happy he got mentioned.
He got a cameo. Yeah. He got a cameo. He wanted to sit in the seat, but we didn't give him. You are important. We love you, husbands. You matter. You matter. And so he made a good, interesting point that the arc, right, if this was like a movie, the arc of your relationship with your mom always has this like crucible moment around Mother's Day, which is coming up in just a few short days. So all of that to tee you up, to just kind of share with us, like, how did your relationship with your mother evolve, then bringing you into this program that you've created?
Oh my gosh. It's like, okay, let's see how to say this without rambling on for days.
No, we've got time. We've got time. We've got time.
Yeah. I mean, as people know, like, the journey obviously with your mom is a long one. Like, even from when you're in the womb, it takes a long time to develop that relationship. And so, up until, I would say, about probably 12, 13 years ago, things were fine. My mom and I, we weren't so connected. We weren't like the best friends that everyone has, but we were fine. She was so supportive. But she definitely had her own stuff, and we always knew that. Drinking, really struggled around identity. She was a stay-at-home mom. And I don't think she really wanted to be. She had kids young. So about, I think it was now probably 13, 14 years ago, she had a true psychotic break. So I was in grad school getting my master's in counseling.
Perfect timing.
And the irony of this, the timing is actually crazy, because she got involuntarily committed for the first time. She's been committed a few times. The weekend I got my master's. So I was walking across the stage at the Bank of America Pavilion and getting my master's in clinical mental health counseling, and my mom was in a psych ward, an inpatient psych ward. And you know, you're kind of floating in moments like that where you're like, what is happening right now? And I knew, so the speaker at that graduation, she said probably 45 times in the talk, which actually got to a little annoying, but it's like she needed me to hear it. 3 words: it takes time. And she kept repeating herself, and she would say it really loud. She kept going, it takes time. And I was sitting there in the audience being like, I know this is going to be an important reminder and grounding reality, and it truly has. It takes time. So over, since then, a lot has happened. She, just unfortunately, her mental health is really, it's going to be a forever thing with her. Yeah. She's, as we were saying inside, I think there's a good chance she might be psychotic right now. She's never quite rational or logical, very much struggles, and is in the camp of she is not the problem.
Yes.
She's always been the victim. So it's very hard. We tried for a long, long time, still do on occasion, to get her help, to help her. But her capacity for insight and really ability to have a healthy conversation is just non-existent. So my mom is really the extreme.
Yes.
So a lot of the women I work with, they have similar things, like capacity for insight is low, ability to have a healthy conversation very low. But sometimes there's like a window, right? My mom, there's like no window.
There's no window.
Right. So in one way, that's been really helpful because it's so extreme, right? When she throws us some little carrots of like, wait, are you?
Yes.
You're like, it's kind of a mind fuck.
Yes.
And you're like, wait a second. But most of the time she affirms that she is, still in that struggle and that dark place. So it's actually made it easier for me, even though it's been a long, hard road. In some ways, it's been easier to be able to, I guess, accept some of the boundaries that I've set for myself.
Yes.
And really realize how important they are, and then teach them to others, because in setting the boundary, as you mentioned, that's where you realize how important the boundary is to set.
Yes.
So
may I ask you a question before you move forward? Just for people who maybe are a little or a lot disconnected from their body, which is a lot of us at any point in time.
Yep.
What, and I'd love you to start, what does it feel like inside if you have an unhealthy relationship with your mom? So I know in our group we talked about this a lot, but like for someone who might be listening and who's like, oh, this actually defines the pain and struggle I have, what would it feel like inside if you had to put words to it?
Yeah, I mean, even though, I'm 41 at this point, I'm a 41-year-old woman, I have in me those parts of myself always that yearn for and long for, and really for survival need that unconditional love, that affirmation, that acceptance from my mom. And just presence, right? Like a presence, a healthy presence where she's just there.
Yes.
And you're not alone, and you're supported, and she listens to you, and she makes you know that your current reality is valid. That whatever you're experiencing right here, right now is true.
Yes.
Right? Because a lot of people in our lives are kind of pushing us off our center all the time. And so then, as we know, our parents can only do as good as their parents could do, right?
Yep.
They're doing the best they can. But I think there's a lot of resentment and frustration, of course, with women are like, I want them to do better. Like they can do better.
Yes.
So my journey with my mom really, inside everyone feels a little bit different, but it's like, it's almost hard to explain, but it's like a gut, chest, breath, like, you know, like a kid just wanting something so bad. Like I think about, you know, when I was younger, I wanted a trampoline and we never got it. And I, you know, that feeling of just yearning.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go away. We always like, and you can see it, like your kids are just looking at you for like this love and like, see me for who I am, love me for who I am, be there for me. And as you become a mom, as we know, everything heightens. And that's, I think, where the School of Mom came in, was that all of these struggles and, you know, the yearning, of course, was there pre having kids.
Yep.
But when you have kids, everything blows up in a way. Like in general, your life blows up, your relationship blows up, your body blows up, everything blows up. And the absence of your mom blows up in a way. You really feel the loss of that, because now you're in a scenario where there's so much unknown. There's so much ripeness for beating yourself up, for doubting yourself, for feeling just completely overwhelmed. And in those situations, who do you want? You know, you want your mom, or you want a motherly figure. You want someone to, again, just be like, it's gonna be okay. It's all you want, right?
Yeah.
And usually, like our moms don't do a good job about doing that, right? It seems so simple, but it's so hard. And so when I became a mom, you know, things got magnified, and I was witnessing that again in a lot of the women all the women I worked with, that their struggles with their moms really, you know, came to a head, got blown up. And it was so clear to me at that point, through, you know, I've had different stepping stones on the journey, and we talk about this in Untethered, that the journey is long, and different people, different experiences, different therapists, different programs, whatever it might be, help you make progress. One of my biggest stepping stones for me in my healing was a silent retreat that I went on as part of a graduate certificate I pursued in mindfulness. And on that retreat, my aha was, I am done seeking love and affirmation and acceptance and presence from someone who is unable to give it to me. I logically knew it. I did. I logically knew it. As a therapist, I was like, she's unwell. Right? So, but you can't turn off the mother young parts of you. Like you can't turn off the daughter young parts of you that are, it's always seeking that, right? And so I had this moment on the silent retreat, and basically I got it for the first time. Like I got it on a, as you were talking to your body, it was a body level. I felt it. I didn't just think it. And there was a huge wave of grief in that. A lot of tears, like ugly, ugly tears. And on the other side of that grief, there was some real freedom and some real clarity, in that if my mom couldn't give it to me and wasn't going to give it to me, the next best person to give me what I needed and deserved was me. You know, and I think like we have other amazing figures in our lives, right? Like I have a mother-in-law who is such a gift. She's so genuine, and unconditional love is something I learned from her. She's incredible. Her boundaries are like beyond. And she still can't fill the hole that, or the bucket, I call it a bucket, that I want my mom to fill. There's only one person who can fill that bucket, and it's your mom. And if she's not filling it, the next best person is you. In my experience, and now I'm really witnessing this in the other women I work with. So of course other figures and our fathers or other caregivers and mentors and things like that, of course, can fill our buckets, but this mother wound, or the mother hole, right? It can only truly be filled, I think, the next best person is you. And so that's where the School of Mom was born. MOM stands for Mothering Oneself Mindfully. And when I started it, my thought was like, I was going to attract all the women who had fucked up relationships with their moms, right? Because I was like, well, those are the ones that need to mother themselves, right? The most. But honestly, you know, what was fascinating to me is that the diversity of the women that came, women who have moms who are martyrs. And they don't want to repeat that. women who do have the mom best friend, but they're like, I feel like I'm a little dependent on that, and I need to figure this out on my own because she's not going to be around all the time.
Yep.
Women who had lost their mom and had great relationships with her when she was living, but now obviously there was a huge hole and needing to fill that. And then of course, you know, the narrative around like, my mom is driving me absolutely bonkers and completely disappointing me, you know, time and time again. So I had all these women and I realized, wow, like this, you know, and if it wasn't a realization that was surprising. I'm like, of course everyone needs to mother themselves, but I just it really opened my mind to the need and the real, I think, the reality that we as women and moms today are in a position of becoming more conscious because we have the resources and we're having conversations like this, right? And I look at it like, and it's amazing that we're here. Nature.
I love it.
But it's amazing to me that, you know, and kind of, it feels a little bit amazing and a little bit heavy because it's like,
it's work.
It feels a little bit like a burden, you know,
but
also like there's no better generation to do it than us because we're fucking amazing, right? We are. And through these conversations and telling our stories and becoming more conscious, basically we are in a position where we are able to access choice. And access what, you know, we teach in the mom program and is a huge piece of mindfulness practice, which is discernment. How do I want to show up not only for myself, but for my children and for the people that I love and for my community? And if I'm passionate about not becoming my mom, right, or not repeating those patterns and habits and ways of being that truly didn't serve her or her family, how am I going to do that? And we can't do that alone, right? So the School of Mom really is that resource and that community to help women mother themselves. And when I started it, I knew that there was going to be a more specific program for us. As we call ourselves, the apples.
The apples.
Because you can't compare apples to oranges, right? So the reason why we're saying this is that so backtracking, there was a huge piece of my healing that needed to happen, which I shared openly. I thought, you know, I'm pretty good. Like I've done so much therapy, so much work in various capacities on my relationship with my mom, and really gotten to a place where my boundaries felt pretty good. You know, I have very limited contact with her, and when I do, one of the, I think the things to look at is how quickly can you come back when knocked off your center. Right? I once heard a podcast, and it was Rob Bell talking about boundaries, and he said, how long can you be with someone before you lose yourself? That really hit for my relationship with my mom. Because
I got like a nanosecond. It would be like, I could literally like see her in a picture and I'm like agitated.
Emails, right? And I have a very vivid memory of early days. I don't know if I had my first yet. I think I didn't even have kids yet. Of my mom and I in Government Center in Boston screaming at each other. And I was like, this is not a person I recognize. Who am I? And I'd done all this work and I was like, what is it that when I'm around her, I am completely flooded and out of control, right? And so I, you know, through a lot of work and I got to a place where that didn't happen as much. You know, I still would get agitated, and after I'd see her or interact with her, it took me a little while. I'd have some, you know, quiet
like
tears, a little emotional hangover. My husband always knew, like, you know, after visits with her, I would need some extra hugs. And maybe need some time to myself. So long story short, getting to the end of why, you know, where Untethered came from is this fall, I think it was, I did a session with a hypnotherapist, and I went into the session, actually my desire was to do something around my first child's birth, which was actually quite lovely, but it was a little complicated, and I mean, it wasn't a lovely birth. It was complicated. At the end, it wasn't traumatic like many of my clients have traumatic births, and I know you've had a very traumatic birth. But I wanted to heal my relationship to it, because in many ways, I haven't talked about this openly, but in many ways, I've hidden my stories around my births because of so much trauma that exists in birth, especially with my clients. So I had 2 natural births. The second one was like pretty much like quick and relatively easy. The first one, Libby, you know, we ended up having to suction her out, pretty solid episiotomy.
Which can be traumatizing for moms.
For sure. And it was
Totally.
on the, like, it had a trauma level for sure.
Yeah.
No question.
But it wasn't an emergency.
But it
She
wasn't an
wasn't
emergency
like, we're
C-section.
saving her. Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, you know, having heard the stories I've heard, which like, like these stories are so hard and heartbreaking. I think that's why I always kind of minimized mine. I was like, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
But in doing that, I never really celebrated it, and I never honored what I did.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I wanted to heal, because it really came from a conversation with the coach that I was in, and the way she talked about her birth was like she'd won an Oscar for it, and in a really cool way.
Yeah.
She was just like really celebrating her birth. I was like, well, why don't I do that?
Yeah.
You know, and not that I need to in the way you do, but like it really brought up some interesting stuff there. So I reached out to this hypnotherapist. We have our first, well, we scheduled the call, and I start talking to her about it. And of course, you know, the joke that we have in Untethered is like, Mom always comes up.
She's always lingering.
She's always lingering. So all of a sudden, no surprise, I'm talking about my mom.
Yep.
To this woman, and she says to me, we haven't even gotten started yet. She goes, so Sarah, I know that you called me and we set this up to have a session around your birth.
Mm-hmm.
I am intuitively feeling we have to do a session about your mom.
Yes.
And I was like, of course you fucking know. You know, like, we're still here.
Damn it.
You know, I thought I was good, and here you go. But through that session, I was able to heal and untether on a level that I didn't realize I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really a true physical understanding of my mother's inability to mother me, and a sadness around that, and a handing over the reins, essentially, like untethering me from her and handing over the reins to me to mother myself.
Yeah.
And that was so incredibly powerful. From that experience, I was ready to create Untethered. I felt truly untethered, and it was like, boom, this is the program I have been working on creating and healing myself to create for, I don't know, 41/14 years.
Yes.
And ultimately that was the last step. That's why it hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about Untethered, as you now know, is that mothering oneself mindfully is a good chunk of it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more involved.
Totally.
So really now with School of Mom, there's like kind of two tracks, and both involve mothering oneself mindfully. One is mothering yourself mindfully, where you're really diving into the foundational components of mindfulness: curiosity, non-judgment, discernment, acceptance, and self-compassion and kindness, right? And then boundaries, pleasure, and rest. Like that's mothering oneself mindfully. Then there's Untethered, which is very specifically for the apples, i.e. the women who are like, I don't need to explain myself. You don't need to tell me like it's going to get better, because I don't think it will.
Yes.
Right? And we just get it.
Yes, because there's a lot of, one thing that's come up for me is, as I've created this boundary for myself and my relationship with my mom of estrangement, which means no communication at all, there's a lot of external judgment that comes through. Like, a lot of people look at me with a really hardcore side eye. Like,
it's your mom.
Oh, it's your mom. You're not talking to your mom. You must be a monster.
Yeah.
Type look, type vibe. And so it's really a struggle. And so when you said like the apples, it was just coming into this space where no one's judging. No one's looking at you like, oh, you did something wrong because your mother has made a choice, or for whatever reason, whether it was choiceful because they had the wherewithal or not the wherewithal because they're struggling with their mental health, they made the choice to just really not be able to show up as a child needs. And I think the biggest need most children have is nurturing, as we talked about. Just that nurturing of like seeing the child, supporting them on who they are. And so that was just really powerful when you kind of like bucketed into that, because I was like, yeah, that is my issue.
Yeah.
That is where I struggle.
You know, it's the best of intentions, but ultimately, yes, it's like people will say, you know, maybe they're going to get better, or, you know, but it's, you know, it's your mom, you're going to give her another chance, and it's so unhelpful.
Yes, 100%.
And I think that's where, you know, as moms, we don't have time
Yes.
for unhelpful.
Yes.
Healing your relationship with your mom or dealing with your mom is painful enough for someone in the best of intentions.
Yep.
The best of intentions.
Yep.
To come in and try to help you with less than helpful advice it's just it's unhelpful.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, you know, if you're grieving anything, like if you lost a parent or you lost a child.
Yes.
You only want to be talking to people that lost the child. And specifically with child loss, like you want to talk to a mom or a dad who lost a child at that stage, like at childbirth. You need to talk to that. Like you need to talk to the person who really specifically gets your grief.
Yes.
Those are your apples.
Yes.
So you need to find your apples wherever, you know, whatever you're experiencing. And I think that's been like, that's what's so healing about it. And then of course, having someone a little bit farther along on the journey, like when I think about Untethered now, you know, you're in the first group.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful for this group and how you all showed up so vulnerably and what I've witnessed. And it's also really been amazing for me to figure out what Untethered looks like. Mm-hmm. And this rendition is not going to be what the next rendition is. But one of the things that I think is so powerful is everybody's at a different place of their journey.
Yes.
So if you're like, what's hopeful is that, right? And I laughed when you were like, you're like #healed. And
yes,
I actually like, I am.
Yes,
you know?
I can feel it.
I know that all of you can get there. And I know that all of you are on your own timeline, which is, of course, usually 10 times longer, if not more than you want it to be.
Yeah.
And I also know that you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
So the way I think of Untethered is you're basically like, you know, you're in confusing territory. Like say you're trying to get from A to B and you have no Google Maps and you don't know what to bring, right? Untethered is like, hey, you can totally flounder and go all around Timbuktu, and it might be scenic, but it's also going to be kind of painful. Or you can join me. I've been down this road. I've researched and trained and done the personal work to the nth degree. Still am. Yep. Right? It's still my heart's work and life's work. So I'm still doing trainings about it, right? Currently in the middle of a hypnotherapy training to you know, integrate that. So cool. Why not? Like, you don't have time to like flounder.
100%.
You know, you don't have time to not show up fully and take care of yourself and mother yourself. Like that empty bucket impacts you on a minute-to-minute basis. 100%. Especially as a mom. Yes. So let's get you the support and community you need. And that's really what Untethered is. And so that was a lot, but
I loved it.
That's where we're at.
And I think it's so cool because, spoiler alert, I did attend her inaugural Untethered program, and it was so beautiful. And I remember our last call, was it this week? This week. And you were like, parting words, ladies. And I just said, thank you for the unconditional love and the unconditional support that all these women brought through. And then just even that feeling of really being seen by these women. And I loved that everybody was in different places, actually. One, I don't know if I'm allowed to feel this way, but I actually felt a little proud of myself because I could see like the progress that I had actually made in my journey. You know, and which made me feel some, you know, like triumph. And I also just really appreciated hearing, gosh, there's just so many women that have struggled through this. And it makes sense if I like really were, you know, 1,000 years from now, we go back into our time machines and look at history of like what women's baseline was of support, how society treated us, what kind of healthcare support we had or didn't have. Like, it's not confusing that there was this huge population of women that had babies that were not prepared, that didn't have the skills, the resources to show up any other way than how they showed up. So I give them grace for that. But I also feel so empowered, and I hope people can feel really empowered behind the fact that you don't have to live with that. It's a heavy weight. Like you said, it's heavy every day, especially when you become a mom. Every time I hug my children, I kiss my children or nurture my kids, that feeling, that pain comes up.
Yep.
Usually hand in hand.
Yeah.
It's like always, at all times. And so, you know, the fact that becoming untethered is out there for me as an option, getting closer to it, has just really given me like hope and like just feeling grounded, because it's scary trying to navigate.
Scary. And you know, at the heart of this work is changing your relationship to yourself. And for us to be able to do that, right, like when we were younger, if what was modeled for us was not a, you know, I see you as I see you, fully and full acceptance and love, we don't know how to do that for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so in Untethered, one of the things that's so powerful is that the healing work comes from being able to shift your relationship with yourself to one that is more present and kind and accepting and non-judging, right? All the things we learn in Mothering Oneself Mindfully. The group models that for you.
Yeah, you're right.
They model that for you so that you can then do it for yourself in ways that like even your best of friends can't do, because they're not apples.
Exactly.
Right? And again, it's not that they're not bad people, but on some level they might judge you.
Yeah, 100%.
I judged myself.
Yep.
Right? And so having to get to a place where I, you know, one of the things I've been thinking about recently is, and I've said this I have a private client I'm working with right now, where when you think about what our moms went through, how hard it was, and the lack of resources and support they have, and then how that influenced how they raised us, and then how that has now led to where we are right now. Obviously this is how it is.
Exactly, right?
Of course we're this way.
Exactly. Of course we're fucked up like this. Of course.
And when you have that, what you don't have is, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why was I not lovable? Or like, why am I not good enough? Or why can't I figure this out? That in and of itself is that shift in relationship to yourself, where you can look at yourself and you can be like, look at me.
Yes.
I'm a little wilted, wounded flower. But now I can see that, and I'm beautiful, and now I can bring more nourishment and healing to it. I really beat the metaphor to death of the concept of gardening in the Mom program. And essentially, you know, when we are born, we are this, you know, think of ourselves as a garden. Okay. And other people are planting all the seeds.
Sorry, I just see a little spider, and now that I live in Maine, I'm always worried about ticks, y'all. Lyme disease is real.
I know.
Did we get it? Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
I just pulled a tick off of a mom at dance class last night, and she was just like, thank you. My dad was just diagnosed with Lyme disease. Sorry, that was like a random.
No, I'm totally with you. We just had some spray happen here.
Perfect.
So we're okay.
Good. Because
I'm with you. I'm new to the I'm new to the suburbs.
Yes. Right. Same.
Yeah.
Same.
We didn't have this in Charlestown. So I mean, we definitely had some animals, or ticks or spiders, whatever it is. Anyhow, moving on.
Sorry.
What was I saying?
So you were talking about, oh my gosh, mom brain moment. You were like, yeah, it makes total sense
of the
that
we would.
Yeah.
Oh, the gardener.
Yes, the garden. Now we're back.
Garden.
The garden reference.
So, other people plant the seeds. So other people plant the seeds that become your beliefs, essentially, and that's your subconscious, right? It's the what's at play 90% of the time in you that is driving your thoughts and behaviors all the time.
Yep.
So, as conscious, committed mothers now, and women and humans, we are taking a step back and becoming essentially like a mindful gardener. We're using mindfulness to look at our garden and say, that batch of seeds has been growing, and it is not working in this garden bed. It is not working. There's weeds, or we're gonna pull it up, or it's like crowding this flower here, and so it's not working. And so we start to pull and replant. We replant new ones, and this is the importance of it takes time.
Yes.
Is that, some seeds can take years. Like, we just learned we have asparagus. Apparently asparagus take 3 years. Raspberries take 3 years. I think it's azaleas. Azaleas take a long time.
Okay.
Other things take, one planting season.
Exactly.
And you're good.
They just come right up.
And then you also need ingredients. You need sun, you need water, you need some love. And that is boundaries. That's pleasure. That's rest, right? So you're planting the seeds of pleasure and rest and boundaries, and then you're nourishing those seeds with boundaries, pleasure, and rest. And also, I am new to gardening, so this is very relevant. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So I need other people to be like, how do I do this? How do I tend to the soil? How
Yep.
often do I water it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's community, and that's professional support.
Yep.
And that's really been my experience. I've had professional and community support, and really, I mean, I am the biggest student of what I teach, always. And, you know, I joke in my community that I should have begin again tattooed on my forehead, which is the best mindfulness line ever, because like every day is an opportunity to begin again.
Yep.
Every, you know, breath is an opportunity to begin again. And so I am the first one to say that like this work is amazingly powerful and life-changing and worth it. And like you're never fully there. Like enlightenment is, you know, something that I think monks on hilltops can achieve, but not busy moms who like, you know, are in it.
Yeah.
But in many ways though, we have our own enlightenment. I've had moments of enlightenment that have really highlighted how worth it this work in community spaces. So I invite people to really think about that analogy, especially as you begin to look at the seeds that were planted in you unconsciously. Like you didn't choose those. So start to get curious. You know, what patterns and habits and ways of thinking are showing up in my life, in my parenting, in the way that I talk to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And do I want them? Are
Yep.
they helpful?
I think that's so poignant because one of the things, so your school of mom is the foundation. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm going to like travel. Well, great. You should probably buy a suitcase.
Yes.
You may need a passport, like
Right.
the basics before you
Right.
go on a trip. And then
Right.
maybe you can like go backpack through Europe.
Right.
Like now we're backpack, like now I'm in Untethered. I'm in the, like now we're advancing on our skills. And I think one of the biggest things for me was even having the acknowledgement of said seeds. Like, oh wait, like for the longest time, I had this disconnection with myself, and the seeds the other seeds I thought were my seeds.
Yes.
So I thought all
Yes.
of these lessons, these thoughts, these ways to view the world were all my personality, were all my own personal thoughts, which can then make it really challenging to change and to navigate into a healthier relationship with yourself.
Yes.
And gaining those skills of mindfulness, discernment's huge for me, because I have a really quick brain. Like my brain like can ratchet all the way over across that river and back.
Yeah.
I guess it's not a river, pond, and back in 5 seconds flat. And so being able to just stop,
Yes.
pause, and assess, oh wait, that's not something you planted, Christina.
Yeah.
That was the seed that was planted when you were neglected, your mom wasn't there, and this traumatic event happened to you, and now you think this is how the world is.
Yes.
And being able to parse that stuff out for yourself is so empowering.
So much.
It's so empowering. And so I'm just so grateful because I feel like I've gotten so much from the healing journey that I've begun on. But you're right. I feel like the most enlightened people I've come across or listened to on a podcast or watch on YouTube, they all say it's a journey.
It's never ending.
It's a practice.
And you
They're
know,
still working.
I mean, to your point, like one of my favorite lines is "You are not your fault."
Yeah.
You are not your fault. And you know, the more I'm in the school of mom,
I love that.
and my ladies, I think, trust me, the more woo woo I get. So like we're starting to welcome more woo into the school of mom, if people are here for it. But you know, I think there's something in mindfulness called non-self, right? And basically what you're saying is that it's like, this is not me. Like, what are we anyway?
Yep.
Like, you know, it's tricky to go down that road because my head does start to spin where I'm like, what am I? Like, how are we even having this conversation? Like, how did we get here, right?
Yes.
But really, if you think about, so much of this is out of your control, right? To get you to this point here, what is in your control is everything moving forward in this moment right now, to a certain extent. But if we think about, like, our bodies are these vessels.
Yes.
For, like, you know, I've heard this said, it's like showing up for your shift. Like, I'm showing up for my shift in life. And I got dealt a shitty hand, and so I thought, with my relationship with my mom. But, you know, as we know, at the stages of grieving, one of the final stage is finding meaning.
Okay.
And I'm at a place right now where the meaning of this is that, like, this vessel and everything that has happened and all the seeds that were planted and whatever stars aligned to make me be able to access a level of consciousness that my mom was not or is not, that is the meaning I'm making of all of it. It's like, I am woken up. You know, I keep trying to wake up even more every day, and definitely, you know, have my struggles, but this is me showing up for my shift, and I wouldn't be able to do that if it weren't for my mom.
Yeah.
So it's not a silver lining, but it's an owning my experience, which is ironic I just said that, because in college, my sophomore year of college, I remember I was in a crappy like living situation, and I wanted to transfer, as did everyone else. And I went home for a holiday break, and I was kind of bitching to my dad. And my dad's a Post-it guy, and he wrote on the Post-it, "Own your experience." And that really is something I want women to think about, is like, yeah, it is shitty. And we need to have our pity parties and support each other. And we need to say, so what?
Yes.
So how are we going to show up for our shift here?
Yes.
Because women are fucking amazingly strong and resilient. And if you can see the possibility and the community to help you get through the heartbreak, on the other end of it it's just freedom and influence.
Yes.
And influence is like so powerful, right? The way you can influence how your daughter sees her body, how your son sees his body, how you show up in your relationship with your partner, and then you model relationship for your kids. Like, this is it, right?
This is it.
And it starts with us, you know, it absolutely starts with us. So, you know, the last thing I'll say on that is, this is new for me. Again, I haven't said this before. It's all coming out. This is like,
love it. I'm gonna pull it out.
Yeah.
Pull it out.
I used to say, even this was probably like last year, you know, if you told me today that like I could have a sliding doors moment or wave a magic wand and I had a different mom,
Yes.
I would say, yes, I want a different mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would still kill,
Fair.
crave, whatever, the mom
Same.
who is loving, you know, has the insight, has the boundaries, is the amazing model. I used to say that. Today, and I might feel differently next week, today, I would say, no, thank you. And that is new for me.
Yes.
Because I can say without a shadow of a doubt, given what my mother and her very, very sad, you know, story and her existence right now, what she has pushed me into for my life, is beyond anything I ever would have gotten, I think, if she was healthy, so to speak. And so this is a new thing for me where I can truly say, like, not that I could, you know, rewind it back and wave a wand, but I wouldn't choose a different path. I really wouldn't. And that is you know, I said this at the Untethered group, is, I just have so much hope, and like, I'm so excited for women that come into this space, because I'm here for you, and we're here for each other, and it's always going to be there. But if we're there for each other, it's actually like not as painful as it needs to be.
100%.
And it can actually be somewhat fun, dare I say it, you know, and life-changing.
Oh, totally. My mom community, and I've got little different pods within there,
Totally.
right? So I got my Apple pod, your day-to-day pod.
Yes.
That is my lifeline. Like you
Yes.
said, there's a relationship, a special bond. God bless Seth, your husband. God bless my husband, Nate, and all the partners out there that live in the world. But there's something special my mom group, my mom friends give me that my partner can never give me.
Nope.
And we made a baby together.
Yeah.
Like, but they just can't.
Right.
And it's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
There's a connectiveness that exists, and it's really me getting a touch of that, a taste of that through my experience is what inspired me to create Rebranding Motherhood. Because just like you said, your dad said, own your experience.
Yes.
I feel that mothers have been robbed, thanks to society, of owning their own experience because of so much of that sanitized imagery, so much of the propaganda that has been pushed out to all of us and to our mothers, of what motherhood is, what it's gonna be, and what it's supposed to be like.
Yep.
And the more people like you were you truly have been a catalyst for me to become a person I never thought I could become. And I know I'm just on my journey right now, But you saw me that very first time at that meeting, and you've really given me such incredible tools. I mean, tools I'll never forget. I will leave this planet thinking about my time with you, and the lessons and the resources that you've given me. And I don't apologize for crying. This is happy tears, as I would tell my daughter. This is happy tears. But you said it right, which is, let's own our own experience. Let's support other women. Let's continue to share our stories. This is why we're sitting together right now.
Yeah.
I had to share with women the story that you and I have gone through of damaging relationships with our mothers, and sharing that unfiltered story that a lot of women are suffering with in silence. And it could be a mother-in-law, it could be a father-in-law, it could be a father, but somebody that was your caregiver where they really you've kind of just not received what you needed. There's a deep unmet need that just shows up, like we said, everywhere you go, every day, no matter what. So I just want to thank you. I don't know where I was going on that diatribe I just rambled on, but you're amazing.
So the image, I'm such a visual person.
I love it.
The image I have with the women that like I work with in a more intimate way, like all of them, but really the people like in my one-on-ones, in my small group circles, is like I don't know what the name for these is, but like the motorcycle with the sidecar.
Yes.
Like I feel like I'm in the sidecar with you, just being like, woo, like yeah, and like I'm like whoa, and I'm like, oh, it's dark here. Oh, it's exciting,
Yes.
It's just like along for the ride, and you're the one in the car. I have no, I'm not there. I'm just there to be like, hey, you think you want to go right here? No, okay, don't worry, or like. Hey, you navigated that brilliantly, like just, but honestly, Tina, I mean, I could just gush about you all day in how, I don't love the word proud because I I'm not your mom. I was your therapist at one stage, but like it's just like pride as a friend, as a professional, as a fellow mom, and really as like more of that bigger picture human. Like you are showing up for your shift, like in way beyond I think any ways anyone else could imagine. There have been some dark days.
Oh my gosh, y'all, some very dark days, very dark moments.
And what's so amazing is like just the like I had no doubt like we'd be, not like I didn't know this, right? But just ultimate trust and knowing that you were going to alchemize and you were going to find your own meaning. And it doesn't mean to say we're going to continue to be on some sort of roller coaster, but it's just been such a true honor and a blessing, really, to be a witness and a part of that. Like I'll be in your sidecar all day long and watching rebranding Motherhood. It's so exciting. The women and the humans that you're going to impact and you already have, like you do, as I said, it's a vibrance, it's an energy, it's a vibe, it's all of it. And I mean, I'm learning from you and I'm so excited for you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. This was a dream. Okay. Like when I very first met, I'm one of those people when I meet people, I like have like an instant attachment, and sometimes like they don't know that it's happened yet, and sometimes they refuse it, but that's okay. And you were one of those people, and I'm just so grateful for everything you've given me personally. And I wanted to be able to share your story with other women, and also share this beautiful program, Untethered, that you've created. I am a graduate of and participated in, and all of the amazing work that you're going to continue to build for moms everywhere around the world. So thank you. Hugs.
Yes.
Love.
Hugs. Spider hugs.
Spider hugs.
We'll try not to fall. We'll try not to fall in the water. The best part would be is if we just like toppled into the water.
I love it. It'd be the best way to